What do you do after failing to meet expectations? After making a World War II game with none of the recognizable and iconic battles from that war? How do you market a new Battlefield when the last one launched with a marketing campaign that basically told the entire player base not to buy it? How do you sell the next Battlefield game, and what does that game even look like in an era of free-to-play battle royales dominating the market? In this video, I'm going to go over the rumors and speculation about the next game, and give you my opinions and predictions on the changes that we might see to try and revive the franchise and make it more appealing in today's market. There's been some reliable and unreliable rumors, so let's take them one by one. First of all, will Battlefield 6 be a Battlefield 3 remaster? Well, probably not. This is something that's been talked about forever and was supposedly leaked, but later disproven. I'm pretty sure this is something that they must have thought about doing at some point, but there are many reasons why this probably isn't the case. The main point being that the business case for a Battlefield 3 remaster just doesn't make a lot of sense. Battlefield 3 was released on PC, Xbox 360 and PS3, and the issue is that on consoles, the game was basically gutted to be able to run on the old hardware, with changes being made to the maps, graphics and player count. A remaster would therefore have at least some merit in bringing that Battlefield 3 PC experience to consoles for the first time, but that is pretty much it, because at the PC end of things, a Battlefield 3 remaster doesn't really add much. You are still able to play Battlefield 3 today, and a BF3 with better graphics is basically what Battlefield 4 was. Devoting the resources to making a remaster of a game that's not only not that old, but also still perfectly playable, just doesn't seem like a smart decision. But what if a Battlefield 3 remaster is released alongside a new Battlefield? Kinda like what Call of Duty did with Modern Warfare. Well, the problem here is that this would split the player base between the new game and the remaster, and that would be a terrible decision given that the player base for Battlefield 5 was already much smaller than in previous games. Further dividing and reducing the number of players doesn't make any sense whatsoever when the franchise is struggling to remain relevant. Modern Warfare is a pretty exceptional case, a game that revolutionized the multiplayer first-person shooter in a lot of ways, and it was released back in 2007. Battlefield 3 was awesome, but it's not as relevant in that regard, and it's a 2011 game that still looks pretty good today. Add to that the fact that with so many Battlefield games being riddled with issues at launch, trying to release two games at the same time is just asking for trouble. Especially in a year where they have to work on supporting current and next-gen consoles for Battlefield 6. Battlefield 5 took like a year to get basic fixes and decent amount of content. So, you know, if they can barely get one game out the door, it makes really no sense to expect them to try doing two at the same time. Battlefield 6 needs to be its own thing, and it needs to push the boundaries and reinvent what a Battlefield game is in 2021, at a time where games like Warzone are dominating the market. But it also needs to play it safe. It needs to make sure to capture a wider audience than its predecessor. So the first prediction I'm going to make is that Battlefield 6 is just going to be called Battlefield. No number, no subtitle or other name, just Battlefield. This is what you need to do to make sure that everyone that was burned by Battlefield 5 understands that you're not interested in repeating the same mistakes, and that you've gone back to the drawing board for this one. The second prediction is that it's going to be set in some sort of imaginary modern day type of conflict, which has also been leaked or confirmed by Tom Henderson, who has a history of accurately leaking information about Call of Duty games. A modern day setting is not only more popular than something like the First or Second World War these days, but it also allows for a way easier and more sensible approach to cosmetics. The cosmetics sold for Battlefield 5 all kind of suck. They look ultimately extremely out of place because they are set against the context of one of the most iconic conflicts in human history, everyone has an idea in their head of what the American or German uniforms look like. So when you have a guy that looks like Maverick from Top Gun running around with a golden STG-44 with optic sights, it doesn't look cool. It looks incredibly dumb. I think it's a safe bet to say that they are going to try to sell cosmetics again. And there are far less limitations in terms of cosmetics when you start to get into modern or futuristic settings. Nobody will think twice about having a crazy skin on a modern rifle, but when you try to do the same to an M1 Garand, it just looks weird. And the same goes for tank skins or cosmetics for the playable soldiers. So a modern setting really does make sense, and if you take into account the fact that Battlefield 3 and 4 are both held in high regard by the Battlefield community, it's kind of a no-brainer to fall back to that. Now let me add my own speculation into this, and my first prediction is that the next game will be free to play. Now this may be anecdotal, but I've been playing Battlefield games ever since Battlefield 1942 with pretty much the same group of around 15 people, and there is no way that they are going to buy another Battlefield game. Every person that I've talked to that used to play Battlefield has been so burned out by the bugs and the content problems and just overall experience of Battlefield 1 and 5 that they are just not willing to take a chance on the next game. Yeah, I know a lot of people like Battlefield 1 a whole lot, but that was the first game in the series where I started to see a lot of people lose interest really fast. It was too chaotic and the context was basically thrown out the window with the presence of so many fully automatic weapons. After the Battlefield 5 fiasco especially, and considering this will be essentially competing with games like Warzone, it will definitely be a hard sell if they price it like a full game. Yes, I know the new Black Ops isn't free, it's full price, but there needs to be at least some component to the new Battlefield game that is free to play. While Call of Duty can still afford to go with full price for its new releases, a new Battlefield game can't. At least I don't think so. Especially if the rumor, once again by Tom Henderson, is true that the maps are being developed with over 128 people in mind. Right now, hopping in and out of a Battlefield game takes way too long, and servers are usually either empty or completely full, with very few in-betweens. This means players spend a lot of time waiting to join a full server or get placed into empty servers. So they need as many people as possible playing to try to minimize this issue, especially if they are going to attempt to double the player count per map. In addition to this, I think they need to somehow bridge the gap between the Battlefield Conquest experience and the drop in and out nature of Battle Royale games. Battlefield's Conquest mode hasn't really adapted well to the age of matchmaking. It is still rooted in the old style of dedicated servers that were up all day and you just joined whatever happened to be available. Waiting for people to populate an empty server isn't something that people want to do or even tolerate nowadays, so what I think they're going to try and do, or might do, is add bots. If you have bots filling out player slots, so you always get the illusion that you're in a full server when it's actually only 30 humans, that could be a decent way to solve the problem. It's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It just has to be better than putting someone on an empty server. Another way of dealing this, which I think would be much cooler and better, would be to have dynamic scaling maps that automatically adjust to whatever the player count is. The way I envision this working is the more players you get, the more flags and terrain that becomes available, so no matter what, you always get a somewhat ideal player density and map size. Now, I'm not a game developer, so I have no idea if these solutions are feasible or not, but they have to modernize the game. They need to improve the user experience and make getting into a game faster. What that ends up looking like, we'll just have to wait and see, but I really think that they can't afford to keep making the same game modes and style of matchmaking that they've been using for basically decades now. Will Battlefield 6 have any of these features? I can only hope. I've said this multiple times before, but there's really nothing quite like Battlefield out there. The vehicles, the destructible environments, the large-scale battles, no other games out there really get close to that. So whatever Battlefield 6 ends up being, I hope they get it right this time. And the more I think about it, the more eager I am to find out what it is. So that's it, that's my take on Battlefield 6 and what I think might be in store for us. Or at least what I hope they focus on getting right this time around. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this down in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed watching, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching and I hope I will catch you in the next one.